Hello everyone! Welcome back to Old Charles, your favorite channel for exploring the fascinating world of coins, currency, and collectibles. In today's video, we're diving deep into the story of the Australian 50-cent coin from 1981, its history, design, condition, and most importantly, its current value in the collector's market. If you love coin collecting or just enjoy learning about rare and historical coins, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around till the end, because this coin has a lot of interesting details you don't want to miss. Let's start with the history. The 50-cent coin is one of Australia's most recognized and widely used coins. But it has an interesting story. The very first 50-cent coin was introduced in 1966, and that version was made of 80% silver. Because of the rising price of silver, the melt value of the coin quickly became higher than its face value, so people started hoarding them. That's why the silver 50-cent coin was discontinued after just 1 year, 1969. The Royal Australian Mint reintroduced the 50-cent coin, this time in a dodecagonal shape, a 12-sided design, which made it very easy to distinguish from the 20-cent coin. This version was made with copper-nickel alloy, which is still used today. By the time we reach 1981, the 50-cent coin was already a well-established part of everyday Australian currency. Millions of these coins were struck, and 1981 is especially interesting because that year, Australia faced a surge in demand for circulating coins. To meet the demand, not only the Royal Australian Mint in Canberra, but also the Royal Mint in London and the Royal Canadian Mint helped produce these coins. So if you look closely at the details of your 1981 50 cent, it may have been minted in Australia, the UK, or Canada. Now let's take a closer look at the design of this coin. On the obverse side, you'll find the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin. This is the second portrait of the Queen, which was used on Australian coins from 1966 until 1984. In this design, the Queen is shown wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, one of her most famous tiaras. On the reverse side, you'll see the Australian coat of arms, featuring the kangaroo and the emu, two animals that are native to Australia and are chosen because they cannot walk backward, symbolizing progress. The shield in the center shows the 6 states of Australia. Surrounding the coat of arms are 50 small dots representing the value 50 cents. The coin weighs 15.55 grams, has a diameter of 31.65 millimeters, and is made of copper-nickel alloy. Now let's talk about condition, because condition is everything in the world of coin collecting. If your 1981 Australian 50-cent coin is heavily circulated, scratched, or worn down, it will generally only be worth its face value, that is, 50 cents in everyday money. These are very common in circulation, so worn examples are not rare. However, if your coin is in better condition, such as extremely fine, XF, or almost uncirculated, AU, collectors may pay a small premium for it. In uncirculated condition, where the coin looks fresh from the mint with no wear, its value can be a few dollars. And if you're lucky enough to have a proof version of this coin, which was struck with special dies for collectors, the value can be much higher, sometimes ranging from $10 to $20 or more, depending on its preservation. Another fascinating detail about the 1981 Australian 50 cent is that it was minted in 3 different locations: Canberra, Australia, London, UK, and Ottawa, Canada. While they all look similar, specialists can sometimes tell the difference based on die varieties, small details, and striking styles. This makes collecting the 1981 50-cent coin even more interesting, because some varieties are scarcer than others. For example, coins struck at the Royal Canadian Mint may be slightly harder to find in Australia, making them more desirable for collectors. So, what is the value of the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin today in circulated condition? It is generally worth only its face value, 50 cents AUD. In uncirculated condition, collectors may pay around $2 to $5. Proof versions or high-grade examples can sell for $10 to $20 or more, especially if they are certified by a professional grading service. Rare die varieties or error coins, such as double strikes, misaligned dies, or off-center strikes, can be worth significantly more, depending on rarity and demand. While most 1981 50-cent coins are common, there's always a chance you could discover a special variety or high-grade piece worth keeping. So, there you have it, the complete story of the Australian 50-cent coin from 1981. From its rich history and international minting to its design, condition, and collector value, this coin is a fascinating piece of Australia's currency system. If you have one of these coins in your collection, make sure to check its condition carefully. And who knows, it could be worth more than just pocket change. To really understand the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, we have to go way back in history, because this coin didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's the result of decades of change in Australia's currency system. Australia, as many of you know, was originally part of the British Empire, and for a long time, the country used British coins and the old pound shillings pence system. For example, there were 12 pence in a shilling and 20 shillings in a pound. It was a complicated system, especially for younger generations who found it difficult for everyday trade. By the early 1960s, the Australian government began planning a decimal currency system, which would be easier to use and more modern. Finally, on 14 February 1966, Australia officially switched to decimal currency. This was a huge moment in the nation's history. The pound was replaced by the Australian dollar, and the shillings and pence were replaced with cents. The 50-cent coin was one of the original coins introduced in 1966. But here's where the story gets really interesting. That very first 50-cent coin was made of 80% silver. It had a round shape, a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on one side, and the Australian coat of arms on the other. But soon after its release, the price of silver in the world market began to rise. People realized that the coin's silver content was worth more than its face value of 50 cents. Many coins were hoarded, melted down, or simply disappeared from circulation. As a result, the government stopped making silver 50-cent pieces after only 1 year. This made the 1966 silver 50-cent coin one of the most famous and collectible coins in Australian history. In 1969, the Royal Australian Mint reintroduced the 50-cent coin, but this time in a dodecagonal shape, a 12-sided polygon, and made of a copper-nickel alloy instead of silver. This unique shape instantly set it apart from the 20-cent coin, which was round and slightly smaller. The 12-sided design was practical, durable, and distinctive. From then on, the 50-cent coin became a permanent part of the Australian currency system. Throughout the 1970s, the 50-cent coin continued to circulate widely. The coin always carried the Australian coat of arms on the reverse, with the kangaroo and emu standing proudly on either side of the shield. The obverse featured Queen Elizabeth II, with the design being updated over the decades as her portraits changed. Now, by the time we reached 1981, Australia was experiencing high demand for coins. This was partly due to economic growth, population increases, and the natural wear and tear of coins in circulation. The Royal Australian Mint in Canberra could not keep up with the demand on its own, so the government made the unusual decision to outsource production. That year, 3 different mints around the world struck the 50-cent coin: the Royal Australian Mint in Canberra, the Royal Mint in London, United Kingdom, and the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa, Canada. This makes 1981 one of the most fascinating years for the Australian 50-cent coin, because although the coins look almost identical, specialists know that tiny differences in dies, strike quality, and even metal finish can sometimes reveal which mint produced a particular coin. The decision to outsource coin production shows just how essential the 50-cent coin had become in everyday Australian life. It was no longer just a piece of change. It was a symbol of national identity, with the coat of arms proudly displayed, and also a reflection of Australia's connection to the wider Commonwealth, as the coin still bore the portrait of Queen Elizabeth I. The 1981 Australian 50-cent coin sits at a crossroads in history. It's part of a decimal system born in 1966, part of a tradition of unique 12-sided coins since 1969, and part of an international minting story that connects Australia, the UK, and Canada all in 1 year. Now let's talk in depth about condition, because when it comes to coin collecting, the condition of a coin can completely change its value. 2 coins from the same year and the same mint may look similar at first glance, but if one is heavily worn and the other is pristine, their prices can be worlds apart. So, how do collectors judge condition? They use a system called coin grading. Let's go step by step through the main categories. In this grade, the coin has been in circulation for a very long time. The surface will be extremely worn, with major details on both the Queen's portrait and the coat of arms completely smoothed out. The coin may also have scratches, dents, or even discoloration. A 1981 50 cent in this condition is worth only its face value, 50 cents, because collectors usually aren't interested in heavily damaged coins unless they are extremely rare. Here, the coin still shows heavy wear, but the major designs are at least visible. You can recognize Queen Elizabeth II's profile and the outline of the kangaroo and emu on the reverse, though the finer details like hair, feathers, or shield patterns will be gone. These are still considered common circulation coins, worth around face value. In this grade, you'll start to see more detail. The coin has been used, but you can still make out the facial features of the Queen, the details of the tiara, and some of the lines in the coat of arms. Coins in this condition may have light scratches, rim wear, or dull color, but they are more appealing to collectors. A VF 1981 50 cent might be worth slightly above face value, but not much more. Now we are moving into more collectible territory. An extremely fine coin shows very little wear. Most of the design details are still sharp, and the coin retains much of its original luster that natural shine coins have when they are freshly struck. Only the highest points of the design, such as the queen's hair curls or the kangaroo's fur, may show slight flattening. Collectors are more interested in these, and they can sometimes sell for a few dollars each. An AU coin looks almost new. It may have the faintest signs of handling, maybe a tiny scratch or a bit of wear under magnification, but to the naked eye it appears nearly uncirculated. These are much more attractive to collectors, and a 1981 coin in AU condition can bring $2 to $5 depending on the buyer. Now we come to the highest standard for circulation strikes. An uncirculated 1981 Australian 50-cent coin has no wear at all. It looks as if it just came from the mint. All the details, from the queen's crown jewels to the fine lines of the shield, are sharp and clear. The coin still has its original luster, and sometimes even a frosty or satin appearance depending on how it was struck. These coins are the most desirable for casual collectors, often selling for $5 to $10 or more if perfectly preserved. And finally, let's not forget the proof coins. Proofs are not meant for circulation. They are struck with specially polished dies and blanks to create an ultra-sharp, mirror-like finish. A 1981 proof 50-cent coin would have been sold directly to collectors in special packaging. If kept in its case, the value today can be $10 to $20 or higher depending on demand. But condition isn't just about grading, it's also about preservation. Collectors pay more for coins that have been well stored. If your 1981 50-cent has been kept in a coin capsule, away from humidity and fingerprints, it will fetch more than one that's been jingling in someone's pocket for decades. Never clean your coins, especially with chemicals or polishing agents. Cleaning might make a coin look shiny, but it actually damages the surface and lowers its value significantly. Serious collectors always prefer coins with natural toning and original surfaces. Oh, to sum up, a heavily circulated 1981 50-cent is worth only 50 cents. A lightly circulated one might get you $1 or $2. A crisp uncirculated or proof coin could bring $5 to $20 or more, and rare varieties or mint errors can be far more valuable. That's why condition matters so much. It's not just about